Hi, and welcome back to the summer edition of Alec and Wyatt Weekly. I'm Alec McChesney.
And I'm Wyatt Wheeler. This is our Summer Spectacular.
I don't want to call it that. It's more of our football preview, but for Wyatt, we'll call it the Alec and Wyatt Weekly Summer Spectacular.
Summer Spectacular!
It is good to be back. It is good to be back. I won't lie. I'm back for the day from Kansas City. Wyatt taking a little bit of break from the news leader. We're going to talk Missouri State. We're going to take Missouri State football.
Yeah.
He's pretty much lived in the Standard and the news leader this summer.
Yeah.
So, you know a lot more than I do. But
I haven't slept in 5 days.
At least you're not sleeping in a car or on a couch.
I did sleep in a car one night during the
time.
summer, but that's the story for another day.
Which we probably will tell you, even though you don't want to hear it. But today, the important thing is that tomorrow morning, football reports and training camp officially begins. What are you excited about this year?
I'm excited. It's year 3 of Steck, and it's kind of weird because there's no Dylan Cole. It's a whole lot of new this year.
I would say that's everywhere. If you look up and down, really the only people that you can say who are there are Malik Earl and Deion Holloman. Other than that, it is a bunch of new faces from the quarterback position to middle linebacker and even to wide receiver. Even though you have Earl and Holloman, there are a couple of new players who are going to step up and be bigger players this year than they were last year. Some of them weren't even here last year. But I think you're right. The stack factor is the most important thing. Obviously, signed the extension. Missouri State has a lot of faith in him. But he has to start winning. I think it's 5-17, 5-18 through his first 2 years.
He literally told me that they sucked the first 2 years. Words from his mouth, he said they sucked.
And I think that's a good thing that Steck is able to understand that. Mm-hmm. And that wins have to come. But at some point, you can't say all the right things. It's the same thing as Paul Lusk. He got that extension because he seemed like the right guy. But wins matter. So Steck can be the right guy, but
he's a football coach. Football coaches are rarely satisfied with what they are, and There's no way he should be satisfied with 5 wins. I mean, talking to him, he got the extension. It helps a little more with recruiting, the way you're able to walk in and say, hey, I'll be here for this amount of years.
Right.
You don't have to worry about me not getting an extension past this year. Now he has that extension. He can sit in a family's home, say, you'll be with me.
And he obviously has done a decent job recruiting. Yeah. They've brought in some talent, Oklahoma State, a lot of JUCO kids this year that should make an impact. But I think that's the thing, obviously at the upper level of college football, you can win 7, 8, 9 games a year and still get fired. Mm-hmm. So I think now they have to win more than 4 games this year. You have to be, obviously, I'm on the up end. I think they could win 7, 8, 9. I know you're on the low end, but you cannot have a 4-win or less season this year.
The thing he did was establish a culture the first 2 years, bear up everybody, but now it's time to win with that culture.
Right. And obviously this year it's not going to be easy. We got the schedule right here. We're going to do a quick little breakdown of the games. Let's just say there are a lot of playoff teams, and game 1 SEC opponent not going to be easy. You talked to Steck about this Mizzou game. What were his feelings, and just go into that?
He coached 14 years at Mizzou before taking over as head coach here. He maybe could have gotten the job if he didn't come here and he stayed as defensive coordinator, which he says he doesn't think about, but it's in our minds. But he said he was talking to Mizzou head coach Barry Odom over the summer, and the two got talking. They're like, what's the locker room look like in the visitors?
Yeah, because he's never been there.
And he's like, I've never seen it. And he's like, I've heard from my friends who've coached on opposing teams how awful it is. So it's the worst locker room in America. So it's gonna be a shock for him. It's gonna be a crazy day, but it's gonna be tough to win in Columbia.
I think it's definitely gonna be a good test. I'm pretty sure this is the first time since the 1918.
Long time ago.
1918 since Missouri State and Mizzou met. But for some reason, over the past year, 2 years, and I think Jake Berger, Aaron Meyer, they had a big part in this, was the rivalry between Missouri State and Mizzou is becoming real. And now to have this game, this statement game for Missouri State and for Mizzou, it's obviously way more embarrassing if you lose as Mizzou than if you do as Missouri State. But Missouri State has nothing to lose. So whether they win or not, I think it's a good test. If they can go there, play for 2 quarters, 3 quarters, then they're going to be okay throughout the season. But if it's first quarter and we're sitting there and it's 28-0, there's no positives from that. There's no moral victories like we've talked about. There's no moral victories anymore. I'm most excited because this is Peyton Husling, who should be the first string quarterback. This is the biggest test you could have. We'll see what he does.
And I think it's asking a lot for a guy who's nobody's taking a snap on this roster. No quarterback is taking a snap on this roster, and you ask him to go into Columbia and win that. It's a tough, big first day. You don't know what you have in defense right now. You don't. There's a lot of unknown going into one of the biggest games this school is scheduled.
I did think it was interesting. If you haven't read Wyatt's article, Steck did say he expects to get booed.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit. Obviously, anytime you go from Mizzou to Missouri State, that's an issue. But at the end of the day, I'm saying Mizzou wins that game probably 27-13. I think that maybe Husling and a couple of the others can get one touchdown, maybe a couple of field goals. But I'm saying 27-13 in that one.
I think Mizzou scores a little more than that. I think they're bigger and more physical. It's the SEC. It's going to be a tough day for Missouri State.
Unfortunately for the Bears, it's not going to get any easier. You're traveling next week, the following week, to North Dakota, a perennial playoff team and just a powerhouse in this league. This one might be even uglier than the Mizzou game, in my opinion, because North Dakota is not going to overlook Missouri State. They're going to be ready to play. They're a hard-nosed and physical team. And you're bringing Missouri State all the way up to North Dakota. This is a tough one, in my opinion.
It's a lot to ask. A lot of travel the first 2 weeks, not being at home, and North Dakota's good. And we don't know what Missouri State is.
I do think that if you can get a little bit of confidence in that Mizzou game, then North Dakota could be easier. But at the same time, I'm not seeing it. I think this one's going to be a shootout. This is the last game that I think Missouri State's going to lose for a couple of weeks, though. But I think this is a shootout, 55-40. I'd expect Peyton they're going to let him throw the ball in this game because they're going to be trailing the entire game. So I'll say 55-42.
I think they'll be down a little more than that. 0-2 to start the year. So
yeah, it's not good.
Then they go to Murray State, where last year they went in 1-0, and the Ruddick-led Bears were able to beat Murray State.
And Breck Ruddick played. That was a really good game. I think it ended up being 28-22. Murray State is a good little team. They're not anything special. Talent-wise, I would say Missouri State's on the upper end here. I think they get off the schneid. It's the first home game in the season. I would say Missouri State takes this one pretty easily, probably by 13, 17 points.
Missouri State originally hasn't had that kind of win in a few years, so it'll be interesting to see what they can do with a team that they should be able to beat. Right. So I think they win this game.
I absolutely agree. Unfortunately, the next week you're back with another playoff team, Illinois State. Really, really solid program here in the Missouri Valley. You're opening Missouri Valley play. Good news is it's at home. Bad news is Illinois State's pretty darn good.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think? You think you got a chance? Back-to-back home games, putting 2 in a row?
I don't think they do. I think Brock's back. He's going to have the Redbirds ready. I thought he should have gotten maybe the Purdue job somewhere where he used to coach, and he's going to have them ready. They're going to be really good once again.
I'm taking 2 in a row. I said that was the last time I'm losing. That's a home game. You just beat Murray State. North Dakota State's next week. I'm saying Missouri State wins in a thrilling fashion, 38-35 type of game. I'm taking Missouri State in that one.
It's just tough. Illinois State's always good on defense.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, the Bears, we're going to talk about it, but their defense is not exactly up to par yet after losing Dylan Cole. Now, this next week, I can't say much.
Kind of hard to argue that they'll win this one. North Dakota State at the Fargo Dome.
And on the road. Now, last year, I don't know if you remember, but Missouri State did play North Dakota State pretty well. I think it ended up being 27-3.
Obviously, couldn't get points on the board.
But they handled themselves well. This year, I think the offense is a little better. Still expect a loss in this game. Unfortunately for Wyatt, this is my last loss of the season for the Bears. But I think they're going to get crushed in this one. I can't see that.
I think North Dakota State, they didn't win the championship last year, which is something that we don't say very often about this team.
Absolutely.
They're going to be hungrier than ever. They could beat Missouri State 70-0 if they wanted to.
I wouldn't be shocked.
They are that good.
And the Bears do occasionally have at least 1 or 2 of those games, Youngstown State, Northern Iowa last year, where they just don't show up. Another thing that cannot happen in year 3 in Stack. You follow North Dakota State with Western Illinois. This game last year was homecoming when I did the PSU Marathon. Most exciting game of the year. I think they ended up losing 38-35. But Missouri State had so much fight, so much actual gusto, it felt like a real football game. Pretty sure Western Illinois scored 2 minutes left, like not even less than that to win the game. But this is a payback game. You're on the road. This is one that I have them circled as winning, and I expect to do in physical football because they need this one.
I think this is kind of right there in the middle. There's the really good teams at the top, and Missouri State needs to show that they're right there in the middle, can make a playoff in a few years.
Right.
I think they have to show that they can win these games because they kind of showed they can win the lower end of the middle pack, but now it's time to climb up there.
And I think the interesting thing is here, they might be coming off a spanking by North Dakota State. In the first 2 years of Steck's tenure here, when they would lose a really bad game, the next game they would be really bad again. That needs to turn. Every now and then you're not going to have your best stuff, but that next game there needs to be a comeback. You need to win that next game. And I think that's the case in this situation. I think they're able to defeat Western Illinois.
And I think a lot of that, too, has to be with the schedule, too.
Yes.
This is a gauntlet.
It is. And it doesn't get any easier when you come back home and you go South Dakota State. Another fantastic team in the division. It's tough.
One of the better teams in all of FCS football.
Absolutely.
So,
my thought process here, you come off the win at Western Illinois, you're coming home. This is the hump. This is that we were just talking about. If you can get a run going, if you could win 5 or 6 games, you might make the playoffs here. You beat Western Illinois, you already beat Illinois State. If you can get a win in this game at home, then you can start talking about playoffs. And you can start talking about how Missouri State is a football team. I think they win this one. And I think they go on a little win streak here because Indiana State, SIU after that. But what do you think they got a chance here against South Dakota?
South Dakota State, I don't think so. They're called the Jackrabbits.
Jackrabbits for a reason.
I'm a fan of that mascot name, so they probably win by a lot. But last year, I remember Steck made a strange 4th down call in the second quarter, which ended up swinging the game. We got to see a little bit more better situational football calling right there.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna be it's a tough one.
I can't disagree with that. I just think they're in this game at home. I felt like they were in the game last year until they kind of fell apart there after that call. But I think they're in this game. And the same thing, Indiana State, they beat them last year.
I think Indiana State's gonna be terrible.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't see much coming from them.
They're gonna be terrible. They're probably gonna be the worst team in the league. They got some exciting things going forward with facilities upgrades, but new head coach, I think it's going to be a strange year.
I think when Bears fans hear that Indiana State is going to be the worst team in the MVC, it's music to their ears because you're not saying the Bears are the worst team.
They'll have a new long snapper. It's just going to be a long year for them.
And I would agree. I think they're going to pull off the victory there. And then you have a team that they also beat last year. You're going to Southern Illinois. This has the potential. You could be winning, to me, this could be 4 straight games in a row here after Western Illinois, South Dakota State, Indiana State, or at least winning 3 of 4 in this little end of the season and spurt here. I think they can beat SIU. There's no reason in my mind. Obviously, things will change, but there's nothing to be threatened by Southern Illinois.
They were able to do it last year. They should be able to keep on it this year. If you're improving, you shouldn't be falling back down, even though there was a little transition. I mean, you're losing Brody Lambert, but we wanted to see a little bit more of other quarterbacks who ended up not returning to the team this year.
Right.
But defense is just a question to me right now.
We'll have a mini video of that where we break down the defense, and I think obviously there's tons that can change from now until then, but I just don't see Southern Illinois being special. That's a game that if you want to be a playoff team, you have to win. And I would say the same for the next one. Northern Iowa. Last year, I covered that game when the Bears went up to Northern Iowa. 4 minutes into the game, I'm pretty sure it was 21-0. There was picks, there was pick sixes, there was kick returns for a touchdown. Final score ended up being 55-0, maybe 62-7. It wasn't good.
It wasn't good.
It was so good that I can't remember the score. and it was that bad. Those are the games you can't have here, and especially if you've won 3-4 in a row. I'm taking them to win this one just because of the embarrassment factor from last year. You're at home, end of the season. This could be a game that could help them get in the playoffs.
I think Northern Iowa is one of those. Northern Iowa was a borderline playoff team last year. They maybe could have been in, but they didn't make it. So it's I think it's bridging that gap between 64-0 and trying to bring that closer.
Absolutely.
I think you got to. I don't know how much of factor home field is at Missouri State either.
That's true.
The other team's traveling, but
I think obviously the fans, it'll depend on how they show out this year, and obviously if the team's winning, it might help a little bit. But for me, it's the travel, it's the being a college student, it's all of those things that I just think it's easier playing. You're sleeping in your own bed, you're doing all of those things. I think that's an advantage. Now this one I have circled on Youngstown State, last game of the season. Many reasons I've circled this. Bo Pelini, former Nebraska coach, ruined my life many times as a kid. One of the reasons. Another reason, though, is last year it was the worst football game I've ever watched in my entire life. 65-20, Youngstown State won, and it was bad. Mm-hmm. That's a game where if you're not a player on the Bears that is amped up to go get revenge, then the team shouldn't be playing anyway. They have to win that game, in my opinion. That was so embarrassing that they have to come out and they have to try to spank the Penguins at Youngstown.
Youngstown State made the championship last year.
Yes.
The national championship game.
I watched, yes. They had that really good catch to get in there, yes.
Missouri State's not at that level of championship football yet.
Listen, I'm not going to disagree. I think this is way more moral victory than anything else. Okay, let's put it this way. They're going to be in that game. They can't not be.
I think the only way they're in this game is if Youngstown State's playing for the playoffs. If they're resting guys towards the end, towards later in the year.
Well, here's my question. What if Youngstown State's playing for the playoffs? And so are the Bears.
Then Youngstown State's going to... it's not going to be good.
Okay. So, either way, I think the positive thing when looking at the schedules, even though there are definitely a few games that Wyatt and I can agree might not be pretty, a lot of those games, 7 of those games, we can agree that they're competitive in. Should be competitive in. Obviously, a lot can change, but I fully expect them, aside from North Dakota State, and aside from North Dakota, I expect them to be competitive in all of the games.
I think they can have the same record as last year and be an improved team.
Absolutely.
So my expectations aren't really big for them in the win column.
Right.
Making the playoffs, I think, is a little bit of a stretch right now. But I think they should be showing signs of improvement, that they should be a playoff team within the next 2 years.
And I think what you're saying by that is they might lose to Northern Iowa and to Youngstown State again. But instead of losing 55 or 65-0, they lose 31-21. They lose 30-17. Things like that, where you can take positives from each game. Now, that was our basic preview of the Missouri State football team. September 2nd is the first game against Mizzou. We will be there. We'll be doing the coverage during the game. We're probably going to go live after the game to give you everything you have. The easiest way to get all this information is to check out our notebooks, which we've started doing, and you can find that on our Facebook page right here. And yes, literally right there. Grab it. And also on the Standard, we'll have our Back to Campus issue coming out once we're back in school, and that'll be online too. Wyatt and the staff's done an incredible job there. There's plenty of stuff about the one and only Alec and Wyatt Weekly, and of course the rest of the Standard sports staff, because we love them too.
You see our picture like 5 times in this thing. It's kind of weird.
We're excited. Football is back. Sports are back. Standard is back. We hope to see you a lot more this year.
Yeah.
That'll do it for the Summer Spectacular. Have a great day.